And what do you guys like to call us? Two Brits and a Yankee.
Guys, I've got some music lined up for us today, just because we are the boys alone today. What do you think?
Back in town? Is it the boys are back in town? It's been a long time coming, but it's finally happened. Enough testosterone to fuel a rocket ship to the moon.
Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom Ross, and I'm the founder at designcuts.com. And this week, I'm joined by my fellow Brit and hand lettering expert, Ian Barnard, and American retro design expert, Dustin Lee. This week, we're talking about how to get outside of your comfort zone. It can be all too tempting to stay in your creative, safe place, but often pushing our own creative boundaries can help keep our work fresh and relevant. Plus, it can challenge our skills and make us a better, more well-rounded designer. So without further ado, let's get into the show. Got to say, guys, I'm so tempted every time to be like, let's get ready to rumble at the start.
You should do it, just a one-off.
I don't know if I could pull it off like that guy. You know, apparently he gets paid, I think, $1 million every time he does that. It's something ludicrous like that. You know, he does it like in the heavyweight boxing championships and stuff.
Dang, I'd have him record it once and then I just play it all the time and not have to pay him every time.
It's nuts. Like, it's silly money.
That is passive income to like the nth degree, that is.
Yeah, just getting wheeled out and like holler.
I heard Justin Timberlake made something like $6 million for going do 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 do. I'm loving it.
Damn. We're in the wrong job, guys.
I mean, it takes a lot of work. You got to be on the Disney Channel as a
Dustin,
kid.
I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear about the work. I just want to hear about the end result and then dream that I can get there with no effort.
Well, go on American Idol. Anyone can do it. It's easy. Just you go to American Idol, you sing, next thing you know, it's working.
I can't sing. I can't even like talk properly.
And on that note, let's put out a podcast, guys.
Yeah.
So, creative, what did I call it? Creative comfort zone. That's what we're talking about today. And I don't know about you guys. Personally, I tend to be a bit of a sucker for staying in my comfort zone. I remember I did it at school a bunch when I was in art class. I would always want to draw in the same kind of style because I got pretty good at that one style. And so I didn't want to go back to square one and try something completely new. And it got to the point, I think I might have shared this before, but my art teacher came over and painted over my work in white paint and was like, start over.
Ouch.
Because he kept telling me to get out my comfort zone and I wouldn't budge. So he went and did that and was like, try something different. Whereas Ian, for example, you're like the master of trying some bizarre, wacky new thing every week. It's like tuning into a crazy TV show, seeing what's going to crop up on your Instagram.
I think for me, the reason why I do it is one, because I sometimes find I get stuck in a rut and either my stuff just doesn't look any different from the post before, which sometimes is fine for some people, but for me, my personality doesn't match up to that. It's a bit like I have to do something a bit different. Like my attention span is like minute, and so I have to try new things. And the thing is, it's not to like I try new things not to I want to do this new style or I want to do this new effect. It's just that sometimes by going through that process is that I learn how to do something that could actually help with my usual lettering or with my or I suddenly stumble upon an idea where I'm like, oh, I could maybe use this in a product, or I could use this in a video, or I could, and it all comes from just like, let's have a go. I think there's people who will think about having a go and then think people will think it's rubbish. I think I'll have a go. People might think it's rubbish, but I'll have a go anyway. I think so. If you can let go of that fear, it usually can mean that you can try stuff out, and you just don't know what happens, because I suppose, you could try something and you think, actually, I really enjoy this, and it's only trying it that you actually realise that you enjoy it. And by trying all these things, you finally find something that actually can set you apart. Because there's lots of people say, look at the niche of lettering, but you might find that actually you really like lettering, like the mural side of stuff. But only if you try it will you find out if you like to do that sort of thing. So,
okay, I got to be the negative voice of the listener, of part of the listeners.
Don't put this on the listener. You just like to be negative.
I do. I'm a big fan. No, I think it's my DNA. But I think there's other people out there that think this too. Okay, so like I saw a piece from you recently, Ian, where you had done an illustration. It might have been lettering, but you kind of were like, I'm experimenting with an illustration, and it was this sort of 3-dimensional drawing of, I believe, some letters in this kind of rock. It looked like, I think they were supposed to be made of stone. Do you know what I'm talking about here?
Yeah.
Okay, and you said something to the effect of trying something new, experimenting here. This thing looks so good it could have been like in the editorial section of the New York Times. So like that's experimenting, but like when I do that, and I suspect a lot of people do that, I mean, I was trying to experiment here, and I mean, it turns out like something like this, and I can't put this in front of people. It's just not solid work. So
for everyone listening, not watching, that was like a scrawled birthday card by the look of it.
Yeah, it's actually a scrawled birthday card for my 3-year-old. So, but I mean, like, I feel like a lot of my output is like that. So like when I see you say like, oh, I experimented and made this, I'm like, well, yeah, easy to show your experimentation when it looks like a New York Times or a New Yorker editorial illustration, but mine looks like I got poop on a stick and made a sketch. So what do I do, Ian? Because I can't make it work, my friend. It's not as good. How do I do that? Do I give up? And
I think, I suppose I must, I've got better over the years, but if you go back in my feed, I've always experimented, and some of the stuff doesn't look very good, and I'm really embarrassed by it, but it's only going through that you get better. Like the balloon lettering, it was like, doing the sort of realistic foil balloons. It was like, okay, I'd never done this before. I'm not going to say, oh, look how good I am. But what I did was like, actually, look, if I zoom in, I had a reference image. I was like zoomed in, and I was like, okay, let's break this down, because all it is different shades of color. So I chose a color palette from a photo of the foil balloon, and I was thinking, okay, so there's other people that do this, and they do it with spray paints. Okay, I'll use the airbrushing stuff in Procreate. Got that, and I thought, okay, look, there's lots of zigzaggy bits, and you just sort of break it down into its sort of rawest form, and try and get out of like, I think what it is that you look at it and you think, there's no way I can create something like that. And I think, okay, I'll give it a go, and I'll break it down so I can understand it. And my brain is quite simple. And so it's just like, okay, there's a highlight over here. There's some zigzaggy bits here. The letter isn't completely flat. There's some like bits where
I completely agree, actually. And this makes me think of when I did my Photoshop blog, because at one point I was doing a tutorial every day. And that was intense, because they take it's like a full day's worth of work just to put one together. But to keep constant inspiration, I would be looking at editorial, adverts and billboards and stuff on blogs, all these different things to give me something to create an outcome around. And often I'd make it up on the day. So I had no choice but to kind of go outside my comfort zone in that sense, because I wasn't teaching the same thing every day. I wasn't creating the same outcome every day. And it would be wildly different. I think like one of the, I saw the other day, do you guys remember the Daft Punk album cover where it had like that chrome text with like the kind of neon rainbow lighting behind it?
Yeah.
I remember seeing that, and I taught people how to make that text effect in Photoshop was one. Another one was inspired by like Wrigley's chewing gum, I think, because I saw a print ad for some chewing gum and was like, that's a really cool lighting effect as well. And so I taught that, and they were totally different outcomes, but it was only in retrospect I realized like how much more interesting that made me as a designer, that I could do photo composites and lighting effects and text effects and cleaner stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. May I ask you both a question? I would be curious. I haven't said that in forever. I would be curious to know your
Kinda
guys'
missed it.
opinion on this from two people that come from very different backgrounds. So in Austin Kleon's classic book for creatives, Show Your Work, right? For people watching the video, I'm holding it in my hand showing it. It's called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. And he basically, his synopsis is show something every day, whether it be reporting it through Twitter or Instagram or a blog post, however you choose, show something you're working on. Now, if you go look at Austin's blog, or if you go subscribe to his newsletter, you'll see there's a lot of stuff that is not interesting. I mean, it's poorly done. It's poorly photographed. It brings you nowhere. It hits dead ends. Whereas if you look at Ian's, or like if I look back at your Photoshop blog when you had it, you're coming to real solid endpoints. Do you subscribe to Austin's belief that we should share things when they're in literally, I mean, honest with yourself, embarrassing states of being completed or not completed? Or do you believe that things need to be further completed? Because I think all of us actually are examples of things being much more polished than what he advocates. Is that question clear? That was a real...
It is clear.
Yeah, I'm ruminating, my man.
I suppose I'm thinking about what is your intended focus of why you're posting.
Yeah. My slant would be, I'm a big fan of sharing, and I think I think it would be interesting insight, and more creatives should share their process, because some of the best creatives I know do go through multiple iterations. And for example, look at that Aaron Draplin video that went pretty viral with his logo design process. He started super basic, the one where it's like building blocks, making an A.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
It might have been a Linda sponsored one or something like that. And that blew up because I think that's much more compelling content than like, here's a final polished logo, because it showed like all the ones he built and then threw away, and the ones that kind of didn't work as strongly, and the ones that were super simple, and it went through the whole process and that iterative approach and that evolution, and people loved it. So I personally see no problem with sharing unfinished stuff, because I think you're going to be judged based on your final results. And who cares if like the first 5 versions suck, if every time you knock it out the park on version 6, which ends up being the final piece.
So why don't you think we do it more?
Because we're insecure and we're scared of getting judged.
Nailed it there. And that's it. That is...
That's a wrap. I mean, I think it's indisputable that pushing beyond your comfort zone makes you a better designer, because no one just wants to stay in one lane. And it might sound kind of counter to a lot of the logic we put out on the show, where it's like, consistency is great. That's what will help you build, a big social media following. People are drawn to consistency. All of that is true. But I think you can have a consistent style and still kind of flirt with other, aesthetics along the way and gradually evolve. So for me, I get turned off a feed where I go on it and the last 10 posts are completely disparate. I'm not saying to do that, because I know listeners of the show that are doing that, and they don't expect to blow up and have a huge following right now, because they are in that tasting and trying phase. And that's really important. That's like the experimental phase. Once you develop a style, which is something we talked about a lot on the show, I think it then becomes more of an iteration, So Ian, you will very gradually evolve your style over years. It won't be that you'll completely throw away everything you're doing and start afresh. And even if you kind of have some things that come out of left field, they kind of still fit under that umbrella of your style, in my mind. Whether it's like traditional lettering or some vegetable stuff, or like the 3D stone stuff, I still look at that and know it's your work, even if your name wasn't associated with it. It's like if you went and did James Lewis's completely 3D style painted, and it looked like James Lewis's work, that would throw me, because I'd be like, hold on, this isn't the Ian that I know.
Well, I'd actually, weirdly enough, that actually did happen in terms of, I did the skateboard. It's over there. I did a skateboard with Risk on it, promoting his font. I hand painted it on a skateboard. A website, when websites feature an artist, they like to feature James, all with his 3D stuff, and they use my video of me painting the board. So
there you go.
And but that was me. There's me worrying, because I don't usually use fonts in my stuff. So, but I suppose there's this thing where it's like what people expect versus what you want to do. And sometimes I want to paint a skateboard with a font on it, that sort of 3D style thing. I think it's really cool and I really enjoy it. I don't do it all the time because it's not, like you say, it's not my style, but it's something I do enjoy.
Do you think it encourages play? We've touched on that on the show. Because I think when you're stuck in your lane and just churning out stuff because it's like, well, I know this works, I got to do more of it. I'm quite envious of you because you're like this mad scientist where you seem to just do stuff because you want to and because it's fun.
I suppose that something that my friend Thad said, there has to be a purpose
Is that
to why
Thad Cox?
Thad Cox.
Lovely man.
He's
Love Thad. Shout out to Thad. What's up, Thad?
Big up, Thad.
Check out his Thaducation. Yeah. And he said, when you post, what's your intention for the post? Is it to get more business in, or is it to help people? Is it to inspire people? There has to be something that people are going to do with your posts. It's not just willy-nilly. I suppose it's and that helped me to think, okay, what am I doing in this one? This post, I want to promote the fact that I can do a certain style, so that'll be my post. Or it might be I want to promote like one of my products, so I'll use that in the post, like Grid Builder, for instance. And so that really helped me to sort of I suppose when there's different levels and different seasons, like you said, when you're just starting out and you're experimenting a lot more. And I think about Megaladoodle and how we watched her from the beginning playing around and going through the different sort of it was like I suppose artists go through their different seasons of styles. Yeah. And then suddenly it's sort of out of nowhere, it seemed that she suddenly got this style that now, or when I see it, I just think, is that Meg's? Because it's so her style.
Yeah. She found her own color palette, her own style of illustration and so on. But she's tried a few different things. It's not like every post is identical. She has tried certain variants on that.
And I think everything has to do it. Doesn't, not just in creativity. Businesses have to try new things and adjust, because you can't just rest on the same laurels that you used to, because you have to try new things or innovate. Otherwise, you just end up, people go to somewhere else that's producing something that's maybe better than what you're producing or different and stuff like that. So I think even with finding style, you can't then just, I've done it, that's it, I've made it, I can just keep on pushing out the same thing. I think it sometimes, to keep it fresh, you have to either learn a new skill or try a new style or add. I think it's less about just trying something completely different, but like bolting on stuff, a bit like a Power Ranger. Is that it's sort of.
Have you got any examples? Because I know you like to get super specific with how. So
good point.
Ian, my name's Little Cornelius, and I feel stuck in my ways. So tell me, buddy, how do I get outside my creative comfort zone?
So I'm trying to think now.
Sorry for the accent, listeners.
Cool.
Went through about 4 different accents in that one sentence, all equally bad.
I'm trying to think now. I have to.
Oh, see, when the lights turned on you, Ian, asking for the specifics.
I could interject something to this. I think that is greatly undervalued. I think oftentimes in myself, and probably all of us are a little guilty of this. I think most people are. Is what triggered me. I think this was Ian. You had made the point. You said, we have to learn a new skill. And before we got onto this, me and Ian and Tom were talking about this fantastic book I got. It's called Feck Perfection. I know it sounds like I just said a bad word, but I didn't. Anyways, it's a fantastic book by, how do you say his name, Tom? James Victori?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Something that he really pushes in it. Because if you look at his work, and I mean no disrespect by this, but I think this was harder to get good at doing than it looks like. But his work comes across as the kind of work that your brain first says, oh, anyone could do this. And then quickly, when you try to do it, you realize not anyone can do that. But he really emphasizes the concept that we need to think we're in the business of ideas, not in the business of skills. So, I mean, skills are important, but having concepts that actually communicate something interesting or unique or make people think is really what graphic design and most of the time art is about. And I guess like it's easy to overlook the fact that risks need to be taken there. So often risks are not taken there. How many people have written "The forest is calling" or whatever the thing is that people say? I mean, there's no new ideas there. I'm not saying like guilty of this kind of stuff.
Adventure lies beyond.
Exactly. So like, where does that fit in? Because I feel like I would be more interested to see people do perhaps similar work that they spent a lot more time thinking about what they wanted to say and saying something that was uncomfortable.
Yeah, I got an idea. Why don't we just live brainstorm for the listeners a bunch of random ideas for types of work people can do to get outside their comfort zone? So
Yeah.
two off the top of my head, along the lines of what you were just saying, actually, are do a piece, whether it's like an illustration, hand lettering, whatever style of design you're into, that highlights something weird and unique and quirky about yourself that you're willing to share with the world. And another idea would be put time constraints on yourself. So like Lisa did a 100-day challenge, started with the 5-minute drawing. So try and create something under a ruthless time constraint, like 5 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
What else we got? Because I'm sure there's a bunch.
Oh yeah. Well, one I definitely think is say something polarizing in your work. For instance, so many things are taboo, like politics or just like relationship feelings that we don't like to admit we have. And there's that famous saying that not famous, but a little known saying that the most uncommon things or the most personal things are often the most universal things.
Mm-hmm.
But find something that is uncomfortable to say that you feel like polarizes your audience and be brave enough to say it.
I feel like we should have a legal disclaimer on that one. So I would say don't be taboo for the sake of it. Like, be true to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like in this book that I was just referring to, one of his first pieces of art says "Celebrate Columbus," and then he has a picture of a Native American, but he's scrawled with pen a skull over the person's face. That says a lot. Some people would disagree with that concept of how he said that, but he stuck his flag in the ground and said, you can agree or not agree, but I'm choosing to communicate I'm choosing to have an opinion.
I suppose what you're trying to do with your work is make an emotional response, and that emotional response can come through laughter, if it's funny, sadness, anger. One of the emotions because what you don't want is that people just think, oh, that's all right, and nothing happens.
Right.
It's they have to see it, and something has to spring up, because then that spring up either means they will comment or they will share it. And I suppose
absolutely. I mean, how oftentimes, like, think about how many Pinterest boards are out there of just quotes, like written with a fake typewriter font or something. I see these all the time, and they're just some sort of there's now these books like by these little poetry books with pieces of poetry that are like 5 lines long that were probably written by a copywriter that's like 27 years old. But they just hit on these universal emotions that people have that they don't want to admit about their weakness for someone else or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like when someone says something like that, you're like, I can't say it, but I can post this because then I'm not saying it, but I really wanted to say this.
Yeah.
And like you said, it could be joking, or it could be very personal, or it could be political.
Yeah, but that's often the stuff that shines through and resonates with a lot of people.
Right. It's almost like our job in many ways should be to say the things that everyone else is just a little too uncomfortable to say, but they wish someone would say for them.
Mm-hmm.
How would that look in a website if you were a web designer?
Well, a great example would be to go to this James Victoria guy's site. Go look at his work. You'll see plenty of examples of it. You can go to Aaron Draplin's. I mean, Aaron Draplin has some very political pieces that make no qualms about his preferences on political views. And I think people appreciate that in him. Some people don't like him because of that. But, they say you can judge your...
Yeah. He's not trying to blend in. That's for
right.
Sure. How about combining two different mediums or skills? So like Ian's vegetable calligraphy, which we always cite, is hand lettering and vegetables of all things. So just pick like two random things that you like, and it could be anything. I mean, you remember Jackass, the show?
Of
where
course.
Steve-O got like a smiley face tattooed on his back while they're on a quad bike. So it's like horrendously shaky and like the worst tattoo ever. You know,
he also got a tattoo of his own face on his butt, or on his back.
No, it's his whole back.
Correctly.
Yeah,
so crazy.
To give him like the thumbs up. But yeah, like you try anything. So if you're super into, I don't know, motorbike racing or quad bikes and iPad lettering, then like sit on the back of a motorbike while your buddy drives it and do lettering while you're doing that, and make a funny video out of it, like how difficult it is, and you still came up with some cool art on the back of it. And that's the weirdest example, but like just pick disparate things that you enjoy in life and try and find a way to get it into your art.
Yeah. Or make an alter ego,
Cool.
I was talking
super quick while it's fresh in my mind.
Sure.
Lauren Hom made crowns out of food. Did you see that on her profile?
Yes.
Like these amazing, intricate crowns. That is the weirdest thing ever. If you pitched that to a company or something, they'd be like, that's stupid. But she did it, and it's like so different and unique. It really stood out, and people know her for that, a lot of people.
I mean, I saw that, and I took a triple take. I looked at it, and I thought, oh, interesting. And then I looked again and said, wait, she just put food on her head and then took photographs. How can that possibly be legit? And then I looked again and said, it's legit because she's the one that had the cojones to say, I'm going to make a crown out of Cheetos and put it on my head or whatever. That's what makes it fantastic. But I wanted to share the story of, so I talk a lot to my daughters about artists, right? Like I show them different artists. We have flashcards. We go through them and read books and stories about them. And I was telling her about Banksy the other day. And for anyone in the world that for some reason doesn't know who Banksy is, he does this amazing graffiti that's turned into fine art because of its political statements. Anyways, like after I reassured her that Banksy wasn't going to sneak into our house.
Like Father Christmas.
Yeah, I told her that he sneaks and he makes art when no one's looking, and he has this alter ego, Banksy. No one knows who he is. She loved the idea once she realized he wasn't going to sneak into our house. So like make your own alter ego, make a little stencil, make some little stickers, make little pieces of graffiti in the bathrooms when you go into them. I know that's illegal, but do something where you make this little alter ego and spread your message. She found that so interesting. She loved the idea of hiding little notes in the cracks, of different places of the house.
Stuff like that really gets shared because it delights people. One that I've told a bunch of people, Joe Fallon that we had on.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I went for coffee with her, and at the end of the coffee, we're getting up to leave, and she gets into her handbag and pulls out this plastic little mini bag of googly eyes, and then sticks them on the plant that was on the table. And just gets up and walks out. And I was like, what is that? And she's like, oh, I just like to do that when I go places to like bring a smile to the next person.
Yeah.
And I thought that was just so like funny and creative and like pretty sweet, right? But people love that the same way, like you mentioned, leaving like arty notes for people and all that kind of stuff. If that's your jam, then go for it. But don't be afraid to share that with the world.
Right. Absolutely. And what's life if you're not willing to get into a little bit of trouble? If you put a little sticker somewhere and the Starbucks says to never come back, I mean, come on, live your life.
Something that I read the other day was about doing something that's slightly scary. Or no, you're doing something that you get scared about doing it. So it might be doing like, when I first went and did my first mural, I'd never done one before, and I'd never painted lettering on a wall I never used the paint before, and only ever tried the brushes on a bit of paper in my studio. And yeah, it did scare me that it all could go wrong. But you needed that because I think there's something about how you learn when you're put under a bit of pressure that you can't, just doing it in your room or something at home doesn't bring. Do you understand what I mean? Where if there's a little bit of like, this could go wrong, and there's all this people can see that it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
Adds like, I don't know, the learning is like intensified. And yeah, it does really push you out of your comfort zone. And also, I was just thinking is that I suppose it comes from giving yourself, when you come out of your comfort zone, you're doing something you're not quite sure is either you want to do or you're going to be good at. And so there's the massive chance of failing. I think having a good perspective of failure will help you to get out of your comfort zone, because even though it's hard, and for me, I suppose failure looks like maybe I get like, hardly any attention on something I spent ages on, or it's a new style and I tried it and no one, likes it and no one comments about it. But I'm still glad I did it, because I would rather do it than not have regrets of saying I really wanted to try that, but I couldn't do it. I don't want to fail doing it. So, and I've got lots of things that I'd like to do in sort of this artistry way.
Ooh, that's the question. Like, what's something the three of us want to do that's outside our comfort zone that we haven't done yet? We can get it on public record.
I mean, I personally, something I've been seriously seriously considering doing is I've been experimenting with using, I can't remember what they're called. What brand is this, Ian? I've been using these a ton. Posca, yeah, I've been using basically paint markers a lot, and then creating like huge, massive areas of black or a dark color, then using white to essentially create illustrations in negative space, and making them kind of sloppy, but like I like them. Like they're the kind where it feels good to do, not for the outcome, but because I'm enjoying it as I'm doing it. And I've been thinking, man, I want to start making stuff on cardboard and on bigger stuff, and just having a big collection of random art in my garage and make it a little studio. Maybe it's junk, maybe just my kids will see it, but
it's creative expression and it's different and it's not staying in your lane, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I just want to make a mess on real paper and cardboard or canvas or whatever.
I think that's a great tip for the listeners as well, because so many obviously do digital design work, and just getting analog for a change. It's the same way when people lack inspiration. It's like, go for a walk in nature, man. But, the same thing, like just go and, rip up some paper, do some collaging, get back to, nursery, super young age, and do finger painting. Or angry motorists out there. Don't know if you can hear that.
It's so easy to forget that 30 years ago, 40 years ago, artists had nothing. I mean, you had to, for the most part, either grab wood or cardboard, or you had to get canvas and stretch it over a frame and put primer on it and start painting. That was it, man. I mean, or Jackson Pollock just lay out a big, gigantic piece of canvas. He didn't even tighten it over a frame and just start dripping paint. I mean, that's what you did. Like, you didn't get to make something in Photoshop and reverse back and do this and that, or go into Procreate and, move things around. You put it on the stuff, and it's crazy when you think things like Starry Night are seen only because they've been photographed and duplicated in books millions or billions of times, I mean, it all started with single pieces on scraps of surfaces. It's crazy.
But it's cool. Scary when you can't hit undo and you haven't got layers, Dustin. It's scary.
I know, but they all did it. They've all been doing it. We're the minority.
True.
For me, I want to try and do a mural with spray paint. All I've used spray paint before, in the past before, is for spraying like a guitar black so I could write on it. So
that and your sort of criminal teenage days, right?
I know. That's why I got the hoodie. I'll put the hoodie up.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can go and do a bit of spray paint. just
Or
because,
maybe Ian is Banksy. We would never know.
Here you go, guys. Exposed officially. This is going to be breaking news. You heard it
You
here
do
first.
kind of look like him.
I would love that.
okay.
Like,
Dude.
I would absolutely love that. Imagine just national news. Banksy for years has been masquerading as a popular Instagrammer and vegetable calligrapher Ian Barnard.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy.
It's the perfect subterfuge.
I was inspired by there's a mural artist I follow called Ben Johnson, who lives in Canada but from South Africa, and he was doing this stuff, but then he said one day, I was like, I wanted to experiment with using spray paint instead of normal paint, because you can get different effects with it. So he found a wall in his neighborhood that someone was offering, and he did it all off his own back doing it. It's a massive amount of wall he practiced on as well, and it's like, if that went wrong and didn't look very good, it would, the neighborhood would be would look like this rubbish mess of paint up a massive wall, and it was like original brick, and to get it back that way, so there was quite I suppose a pressure to make sure it looked good. But I just want to try it. And the thing is, I know that you have this sense that I can do it. It's going to be as easy as some of these other guys that do these photorealism spray paint murals. But I know that there's knowing, I think, like I said, knowing that there's a chance you could fail, or knowing there's a learning curve. So when you go out and you do it first time, it's not going to be that great. The second time you go, it still probably won't be that great. But once you get like 50 times down the road, you'll get to know the tool that you're using. I think that's what experience is. Why experience is still the number one thing. Because when I came out of college, the first thing they said was, "Oh, have you got experience?" I was like, "Well, I've got some grades," and they're like, "Yeah,
got some grades here."
Yeah, I got some grades. It means you listened and you
Yeah.
answered some questions in the exam. But experience, and just like, there's been stuff like me recording videos. I've only got better at doing it because I do it. So you just have to and putting yourself in front of the camera, which is something that a lot of people really hate. And I hated the sound of my voice, and I hated me on camera. Now I do a podcast and I've got a YouTube channel, and it's only come about because I've just sort of kept doing it. And even look back now at some of my YouTube stuff and I really cringe, but you have to keep on going and you using those tools, and then you change a little bit here and you change a little bit there. You don't get the perfect equipment. People on YouTube are always going, "Oh, this is the basic set you need to do some videos."
Well, starting's the hardest part, right? I feel like once you start, it just becomes very, very almost frictionless to continue to explore. It's that initial...
It's the momentum, like a car starting. When the car's starting, it uses the maximum amount of fuel. Keeping it going doesn't, and that's why you can have self-charging cars. It has a normal engine, and they have dynamo in the wheels, because you can, once you've got momentum, it doesn't take much to keep the car going. It's that starting that does. So once you're started, you experiment to start, and then while you're going, you tweak along the way.
Yeah.
And can I share
whatever you do, don't stop, because then you're screwed.
Can I share a beautiful story with you from Jim Carrey?
Oh yeah, please.
Are you Brits familiar with Jim Carrey?
Yeah, I've listened to some of his speeches he does at graduations. They're really
Okay, so this is one I heard last night, and then I downloaded it. I have like that premium YouTube, so I can download. So I listened.
Me and Tom hope to be at that level one day.
I know, bloody hell. I don't know anyone that's got that.
We've got
Mr. Big Bucks with the YouTube premium.
No. I watched that way more than Netflix. Nice try, guys. Anyways, he said something that just struck me like a knife through my groin.
Painful. Was it really painful with what he said?
All the male listeners just clenched at that point simultaneously.
What he had said is, he had talked about when he was a kid, his dad was very, very funny. And he said, my dad could have been a professional comedian, but my dad chose the safe route, like most people do. And so he became an accountant. And at the age of 12, he lost his job, and we had to do anything we could to get by. And the point is that taking the safe route has just as much the same chance of failing as taking the risk to do what you love. So you might as well just take the risk. You can become an accountant. You can go, Photoshop shoes at, a big graphic design company for the next 20 years, and you can still get canned. So you might as well get canned at something you love doing. You know what I'm saying?
I have seen that speech. So
it hit me
the moral
because that's
is
so true.
You're screwed either way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been canned
No,
from
kidding.
crappy jobs more than I've been canned doing things I love doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better to fail at something. If that's the worst case scenario, is failing, it's better to fail at something that you love doing at least.
Yeah, there's like this illusion in our heads that if we do something we don't like, somehow failure is less of an option or less likely, or maybe we feel like we don't care as much if we fail at something we don't like. I don't know why we do it, but
I think there's less of a safe option in terms of career these days because companies can just sort of disappear overnight. Even ones we thought were like the safe companies.
What?
Yeah.
Don't tell me that.
So the thing is, my grandpa worked for the national electricity board when there was no competition and there was just one or two, and he worked for them for his whole life. And I'm like, I can't imagine anyone, or a few people doing this, working for the same company for their whole lives. It seems that those days aren't there anymore because there isn't that stability in the thing with the money.
Yeah, and after 60 years of service, you get like a gold wristwatch or something.
Yeah, and a really good pension.
Yeah.
I think we have more options. I don't think like our grandparents had the options that we do to do stuff that actually is our, like I'm doing my hobby. My grandparents would never have been able to have that opportunity. And so I think it's, we're very blessed to be able to focus on the things that we love. And actually, there is, like you say, there's not a safe option. So you might as well try the thing that, your passion lies.
Yeah, and also along the lines of what you're saying about your grandparents, like take advantage of the freedoms afforded to you. Like I feel like in the past, you had to take some of these jobs and some of these stable careers out of necessity, and now we are blessed and lucky enough that if you want to go and muck around on an iPad or produce this insane, crazy art and share it with the world, you can. Right? So you've got the time and freedom, most of us, to do that. And you've also got the platforms with the internet, which we all take for granted too. Like imagine before, like, I don't know, 70 years ago or whatever, no one would generally be able to do the stuff we do now and be that creative. Out of like your average person in the nation, no one would be able to do that. And if they did, they'd be doing it hidden away in their bedroom. And they'd be like trying to get in galleries that would endlessly reject them, and their work would never get seen. And now there's no barrier to entry. We can all do whatever the hell we want. We can experiment, we can go crazy, we can have fun. And we've got an instant audience out there where we've at least got the potential to get in front of people with social media and with the internet. And that might sound incredibly glaringly obvious, but I think most of us don't actually think about it in those terms. Like for most of us, it just is, right? That's normal, and so we just take it for granted. But it's like that's insanely lucky that we live in this time where we can actually do that.
The thing is with with art, and I suppose I've never been an artist, or with the art, my lettering art, I've never had it without social media around. So I don't know what it's like to produce art just for myself in terms of, before the internet, not, unless you had a gallery, no one would, and you would, or you just showed it to your friends, that, is art still art if you don't show anyone?
I would like to think so, but yeah, I know what you mean. And design, especially design, is like art with intent for an audience, right?
Yeah.
And with a purpose.
And I suppose, you can push yourself out of your comfort zone and not have to share it. You don't, there's no pressure to share it. I suppose the sharing comes if you want to make it. I suppose I do because I like inspiring people. That's sort of the underlying thing, is that I like to, I like pushing myself, and I like to inspire others to say, look, actually, I just experiment. This is something you can do too.
I think it does as well. Even me, I feel like I get more permission to try different stuff when I see your feed. And if all the content and the people I consumed stayed in their lane and were just too consistent, I feel like that's the done thing. And like, they're successful. So I guess that's what I need to do. I love seeing, it makes me smile when something pops up on your feed and it comes out of left field and it's really different. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And it gets my attention more. I think we haven't touched on that actually. So not only is it fun and you can play around and it makes you more experienced and well-rounded, but I think it also quite often will draw more attention because it's less of the same and it's something people aren't used to.
Yeah. And
do you find that in your content, like engagement can often be quite good when people are like, oh wow, that's different from your usual stuff?
So I probably I came to realize quite early on that just the stuff that's just like, here's some traditional clickbait done in a sort of, the sort of formal script, will underperform in terms of like people commenting or liking or sharing compared to me doing something completely random, which is great for me because the random thing is the thing that really excites me because I just like that experimentation. I love doing the formal calligraphy, but actually, that is normally actually reserved for like doing cards for people where I love seeing the reaction of that personal, if I give someone a birthday card and I've written their name nicely on the envelope or in the card, their reaction is actually, I prefer than getting the likes on Instagram. Whereas with the stuff that's really random and experimental, I love sharing with the world just because I want to show you other people that they can too do this, and breaking it down. That's why I've come to be known as a person who sort of does process videos because I like to show people that it's not like a polished thing that's taken me 20 hours, that I've just time lapsed a video over 45 minutes and this is the result of it. And usually it's like, I may have done it once before the video, but I just want to show that this is the raw me experimenting in this style, seeing what happens.
Well, that's kind of what we talked about earlier. Should people share that stuff? And I think you're living proof they probably should.
But it has to be an underlying. What is your underlying? Why do you want to share it? If for me, sharing is inspiring others. I think like with what Design Cuts do, supplying stuff that help people to use better resources. I try and inspire.
So I was going to say, speaking of that, we should totally, I know we never kind of plug or mention anything on the show. We still haven't mentioned the Honest Designers Fund.
Oh yeah.
Which is
after.
Yeah, like, so there's a random side note, guys, but basically we used to get a bunch of questions come in when people saw the podcast artwork for the show, because Lisa did the illustrations, Dustin did like the texturing, and Ian did the hand-added logo for the Honest Designers show. And people used to be like, where can I buy that font? It's really cool. Or is this a font? And it wasn't. So we went and made one. And Ian worked for months and months with us on this and made one of the coolest fonts that I've ever seen. And yeah, I think at the time of recording, we launched it like a week ago or something like that. And it's been so awesome seeing people loving it and using it. And yeah, I was blown away personally. I think it's a really, really cool font.
No, definitely. And it's so cool to get it out there finally. And thanks, I got a shout out to Dathan, who did a lot of the technical side of stuff as well. Trying to get.
Appreciate you, Dathan.
Yeah. And yeah. So, no, it's really cool seeing people use it. It's always a very personal thing, producing a font. And the thing is that, actually, going back to the topic, the reason I got into type design, I'm not doing so much of it. I spent a lot of time on that one. And the reason why I got to it in the first place is because someone who's following me going, "Oh, when are you going to release a font of your hand lettering?" And I was like, "Oh, I've never made a font before." And because it's me, I was like, "Oh, I'll give it a go." It's nothing. And like, I never thought sitting in a graphic design studio using fonts that I'd ever be one of those people that actually made them. But I gave it a go, and the first one turned out to be real basic and didn't, I sold it and not many people got it. But then, like, my second font, just through experimentation, is like my third best-selling product or something like that. And so it's like,
I love it.
It's weird, and every time I do it, I grow a little bit in my knowledge of type design. So I knew nothing at the beginning, and then the second one really did me in, because I'd come to realize that when something's joined up, how difficult it is compared to something that's just all caps. And so, yeah, and that's something that actually I experimented to, not looking to make it part of my business, and it did become part of my business. And I think that's what's quite nice about jumping out of comfort zone, is that you can jump into something that actually will make you money, not intentionally.
Yeah, it will open doors that you never imagined.
Yeah,
right?
And
we always talk about this, like exploring these random paths.
Yeah,
more of them are going to open up when you try more and different stuff. And who cares? Like, if it doesn't work out or you end up not liking it, literally, who cares? You haven't lost anything apart from a bit of time, maybe. But if something comes on your radar, it can often be a good indication it's worth exploring. So if you're getting questions from your following on social media, for example, or if you feel like there's some serendipity at work in the universe where you keep coming across this new technique or medium or something, just, what the hell, be like, give it a go, see where it leads you.
Yeah.
And it could change your entire career.
Something that I find is scary and out of my comfort zone is doing workshops, actually. I don't know why it scares me so much. I think it's about people paying money and then me letting them down, because everything else I do is, it's normally, because my products are like quite cheap, whereas a workshop, normally a much bigger investment in money. And I think I want to try and give them the tools to get started and inspire them to get started and know that they're getting value for money. And I suppose, yeah, that's an example of like me getting out of my comfort zone, and it's still a really uncomfortable zone to be in as well, doing workshops, because
but go for it. Like, what do they say? Confidence lies the other side of fear. And similar with me, one of my comfort zone things that feels uncomfortable right now is public speaking. And that's always terrified me. But this podcast helps. And this was scary at first. And I want to go and speak at conferences and that kind of thing, because I think it would be really fun. It scares the hell out of me right now. But I promise you, within the next 1 to 2 years, I'm going to start doing a bunch of them.
Yeah. And like, actually, one of my things that has become my main that I have to do every week is writing. I really, and it still is out of my comfort zone. I just struggle so much with it, and it's not something I can push on to someone else to do, because it's my thoughts in my head. So I suppose I could get someone to tidy up the words, but it has to be, because if I'm doing a speaking gig or I'm doing a video for YouTube, it has to be me talking, otherwise I'll sound like a robot. So yeah, I have to write a lot now, and is it getting easier? Maybe slightly, but it's still something I'm like the learning curve for me on this is going to be continual to the end of my life, I think, because it's just something getting what's in my head out on some paper is like words out onto paper. Or, it seems weird because I write words all the time, but actually communicating them through the written word is, a longer written word is hard.
Yeah, talk to Dustin, the master copywriter.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So, any final thoughts about getting out your comfort zone creatively before we wrap it up? Not one. Okay, guys, it's been a great episode.
Hey, you can always edit that little space out.
Yeah, no, I'm keeping it in. No, I think we've hopefully covered quite a lot. But the bottom line is, if you're thinking about getting out of your comfort zone, I think all three of us would recommend it. Lisa would too if she was here. We are missing Lisa. She will be back next week. She couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but she's definitely coming back. Don't worry, it won't become a boys only podcast. That would be horrible.
It's true. It is a lot better with Lisa. I venture to say we would be nowhere
without her. She could do the
her.
show on her own, right?
I think she helps hold it together.
I think she could literally do it on her own with like 2 puppets of us.
I'm curious.
And yeah, I've seen her be like, "Hey, Lisa," with like her like little voices she does.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lisa? And also, people kept saying break it down this episode. And I was like, where's Lisa to be like, break it down? The machine just doesn't run the same without you, Lisa.
It doesn't. It's
I mean, on that somber note,
clunky.
I hope everyone enjoyed the episode still.
I think most people have that thing that they want to try. So hopefully this will inspire them to go and do that thing. Sometimes it's starting it is the hardest part. So break it down into what's the smallest step you can do to start it. It might be the case of if it's maybe like, I want to start painting with acrylics, then buy a paintbrush or get a paintbrush from somewhere and get the paint and put it in a place where you can come, and that's maybe the first stage. Second stage,
or just watch a video of someone else doing it and promise yourself someday you'll do it.
And then never do. Yeah, it's like my guitar sat in the corner of my house gathering dust right now.
If you guys could see Ian right now, he interjected that little line and he's dead serious, like, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, no, I saw it. Ian had his fuming face on.
Sorry,
you crossed
Ian,
the line,
continue.
Dustin. It's not a problem. It's not a problem. I love you, Dustin.
Oh my gosh, this dude's going to kill me.
You still look quite sort of serious and angry there.
He does.
I love you, Dustin.
Sorry, Ian.
Don't you forget it. Love you like a brother.
A brother that I want to beat up and smash his face into a rock.
I'm so upset I'm not going to see you at Creative South.
That sounds like a threat, Ian.
Yeah, but then I'll suddenly turn up. You'll see me like come from behind the corner of a building.
Right. Banksy style.
I see you, Dustin. I see you.
Yeah.
I like how ominous this is getting. Again, without Lisa's sweet balance. For anyone listening, Dustin and myself are going to be at Creative South this year in April. Ian and Lisa, sadly, I think, are not attending this year. Ian, you've done it before, though.
I've done it. Yeah,
you're a maverick.
Dustin, 2 years ago for a couple of years in a row. It was so good. It's when you come to the UK, it's not the cheapest.
No, it's really not. Anyone who wants to sort of provide secondhand clothing or anything to make up for it. But yeah, like anyone listening out, we would love to hang out at Creative South, especially me. I've never been. I don't get all the adulation that Dustin gets, where he's swanning around conferences like this big face, this big name, people coming up. I love the show, man. Never had that in my life.
People say, "Who are you?" and then scoff at me when they find out what I do.
Yeah, they come up to you, Dustin, and go, "Who's your tall, skinny friend?"
Yeah.
And I'll look around and be like, "Yeah, who is that?" Because we've got handsome me and Dustin next to me. Who's this guy?
Exactly. I'm like this little hobbit person that no one talks to compared to you.
No, I can't wait. I can't wait to hang out.
I'm sure you
Finally
can.
Gonna meet. Aren't you like freakishly tall as well, man?
I'm 6'1".
There's gonna be
How tall are you?
I'm 6'2", so I'm pretty sure we're going to be towering over.
See, I
most
thought we were
people.
all like roughly the same size. I'm like 5'11".
Oh yeah, there you go. And Lisa's pretty tall actually. She's like 5'10".
So am I like the shortest one, even though I thought I was quite tall?
You're just a little guy. Just a little guy.
The little guy.
It's all right. We'll look out.
So right, that's why I made the ceiling quite low in this building, because like people think, are you a giant? Because when they do like the chalk wall, my head's like only about that far, like, you know, sort of 10 centimeters away from the ceiling. I am a giant.
It's why I bought the 13-inch laptop. It's just to look like more of a man. So anyway, on that convoluted end note, basically, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you are going to Creative South, let us know. And I'm sure we'll put out some stuff on social media about meeting up and that kind of thing. But it would be awesome to hang out with some listeners of the show. That's long overdue. And who knows, maybe next year, our little dream is going to come true. We're finally going to speak there and some other places.
Can't say we didn't try.
Okay.
We talked.
Yeah,
we talked to Mike.
We're going to
talk to the establishment.
Yeah,
we couldn't make it work.
Mm-hmm. It's all right. I'm just gonna. Mike's the organizer, so I'm gonna petition him, or I'll like get him drunk. We'll have some beers at Creative South, and I'll sweet talk him. I'd freaking love to speak there, though.
Good luck.
Fun.
He is a very charismatic man.
Cool. Can we maybe do some like improvised dance routine to win him over?
Sure, I'm down.
All right, there you go.
Maybe we could just get a bus, get a massive Winnebago, and do Honest Designer tour across America.
That'd be awesome. Or like a little like the Mystery Mobile in Scooby-Doo.
Or like back in the
Jinkies.
olden days, you know, they used to go around like in a little wagon and they would just like open up the door and like they would do it and just people would kind of crowd around, like 25 people. Then they'd go to the next little village.
Yeah,
Maybe we could do that.
that was in Buster Scruggs.
That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, man. I got you. Cool. Well, for about the 7th time, thanks for tuning in today, guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode. And we'll see you next time with Lisa reining us in.
Yes.
Miss you, Lisa.
Have a great rest of your week. Get creative. Get outside that comfort zone. See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com or find us over on iTunes and now Spotify by searching for The Honest Designers Show. And remember, we're now on social media too, if you search for Honest Designers. If today's episode helped you, then it would mean the world to us if you took just a moment to leave us a quick review over on iTunes, as this is one of the best ways for other designers to discover the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you next week right here on The Honest Designers Show.